Monday, we delve into the complex world of security in Indonesia. This week, we shine a light on a remarkable achievement: zero terrorist attacks in Indonesia since 2023. It sounds like a victory, doesn't it? But beneath the surface lies a constant struggle, a silent war waged by dedicated security personnel against the ever-present threat of terrorism. The BNPT, Indonesia's national counterterrorism agency, recently released its Counterterrorism and Violent Extremism Outlook. While attacks have ceased, the report reveals that the ideology and motivations behind terrorism persist. It's a chilling reminder. The battle is far from over. Imagine living with the constant pressure of maintaining zero. One mistake could shatter years of hard work, undo all the progress made. For the men and women on the front lines, this burden is immense, yet they persevere, driven by an unwavering dedication to protect their nation and its people. Join us as we explore the BNPT's insights into the evolving landscape of terrorism and violent extremism in Indonesia. Always stay safe.
All right, strap in, everyone. We're going deep on Indonesian counterterrorism today.
Deep dive time.
You sent over these BNPT reports.
Oh, yeah.
Badan National Penanggulangan Terrorism, Indonesia's main counterterrorism agency, right?
That's the one.
Years of data, research, all packed into these reports. We're going to unpack it all for you.
These reports are incredible, really a goldmine.
Yeah.
I mean, they don't just look at, how Indonesia's been successful fighting terrorism, but also at the challenges they're facing.
Yeah, and one thing that really jumped out at me was the fact that there's been a huge drop in attacks.
Oh, yeah.
Like only 2 in 2022.
Yeah, just 2.
That seems like a big win.
It is significant, really speaks to how effective their counterterrorism strategy has been. I mean, 2018 to 2022, they arrested 1,517 suspected terrorists.
Wow.
That's proactive intervention.
So is this it? Is Indonesia done? Has it won the war on terror?
Well, not quite. You see, the reports really stress that,
Okay.
we can't get complacent. Yeah, I mean, the numbers are encouraging, but the threat is still there.
Still lurking.
Yeah. These groups, they're adaptable, always changing their tactics.
Like chameleons.
Exactly.
So less mission accomplished, more stay vigilant.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to put it.
What kind of tactical shifts are we talking about here?
Well, there's been this really interesting shift from targeting the far enemy to the near enemy.
Okay, so what does that mean?
So in the past, the focus was on international terrorist organizations, right?
Right.
Now we're seeing this trend of attacks against domestic security forces, high-profile individuals, even everyday citizens within Indonesia.
So like the attack on Wiranto in 2020.
Exactly. The stabbing of the coordinating minister of political, legal, and security affairs.
Right.
I mean, that was a wake-up call, right?
Yeah.
That these groups, they're not afraid to target people within the government.
And then you have this rise of lone actor terrorism.
Right. And that's tied to
Unsettling.
the rise of online radicalization, which we're going to get into more.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, with how online radicalization is increasing.
Absolutely. The internet is a breeding ground.
It is.
I mean, these groups are using it for everything. Propaganda, recruitment, training, even fundraising.
So even if you're not physically near a terrorist group, you could still be vulnerable to their influence online.
Oh, absolutely. It's a reminder that we all need to be more aware of these risks.
For sure.
Be cautious about what we're consuming and sharing online.
The reports did say that the Indonesian government is trying to combat this, though.
Oh, definitely. They are taking it very seriously.
Yeah.
Kominfo, that's the Ministry of Communication and Informatics, they blocked over 27,000 internet sources linked to terrorist activity just in 2022.
Wow. That's a lot.
Yeah, huge effort to control the spread of this content.
But I imagine it's kind of like trying to hold back a tidal wave.
Yeah, it really is. As soon as you block one site, another one pops up.
It's constant.
It's a constant battle. And
Yeah.
then you have the content that falls into that gray area,
Right.
right? It's ideologically aligned with terrorist groups, but doesn't directly break the law. So blocking it becomes, a real legal issue.
A tightrope walk.
Exactly.
Speaking of groups, the reports really focus on 4 main players in Indonesia, all with ties to ISIS,
Right.
JD, JK, MIT, and Ansar Dawla.
Right, and it's worth noting, MIT, Mujahidin, Indonesia, Timor,
Yeah.
they've been neutralized operationally,
Okay.
but the reports say there are still sympathizers out there.
Still lingering.
Yeah, you can disrupt the group, but the ideology is much harder to stamp out.
It persists.
Exactly.
And then JI and NII.
Right.
It's kind of wild that they're still around after all these years, all these arrests.
Yeah, it really shows how resilient they are.
They are.
How adaptable they are.
Yeah.
And one of the things I found fascinating in the reports was the discussion about the fact that there's actually a lot of ideological fluidity and internal conflict within these groups.
Oh, that's interesting.
Right. They're not these, monolithic entities. There's debate, there's power struggles.
Yeah.
And that creates challenges, but also opportunities for counter-narrative efforts.
Yeah. I mean, I guess if they're fighting amongst themselves, it weakens them, but also means they might be more open to challenge.
Exactly.
And when it comes to where these threats are most concentrated, the reports flag 5 provinces: West Java, Central Java, East Java, Jakarta, and South Sulawesi.
Right. And it makes you wonder, why these specific places?
Yeah, why are they so vulnerable?
Is it economic factors, a history of extremist activity? It's a question that needs more investigation.
Yeah, I'd be interested in digging into that more.
Yeah, understanding those root causes is crucial.
Totally.
And then you have the unique case of Papua, where you have these armed criminal groups that are a major threat, but there's this debate about whether or not to label them as terrorists.
It's tricky, right?
Yeah.
On one hand, they're violent, they intimidate,
Right.
but their motivations are often rooted in, historical grievances, desire for self-determination.
It's complex.
It's a complex situation.
Definitely.
It needs a nuanced approach.
Yeah, the reports really seem to advocate for a balance between, security measures and respecting human rights in Papua.
A tough balance to strike.
It is.
One thing that's clear, though, from these reports is that Indonesia isn't just focusing on arrests when it comes to counterterrorism.
Oh, no, it's a much broader approach, way more multifaceted.
They highlight this RAN-PE, the National Action Plan for Preventing and Countering Violent Extremism.
Yes, RAN-PE.
And it's a whole-of-government and whole-of-society approach.
Everyone has a role to play.
So not just law enforcement, intelligence.
Right.
It's about engaging communities, civil society, religious institutions, individuals.
Exactly. The RAN-PE really pushes community engagement as a core strategy.
Sure.
Because communities are on the front lines.
They are.
And the reports highlight some amazing work being done by civil society organizations.
Oh, yeah.
Groups like Empatiku, Pushim Surabaya, Tanaker Jember, Amon Indonesia.
Right. I've heard of some of them.
Yeah, they're implementing these innovative programs to build resilience and counter extremist narratives.
That's vital work.
It is. They're doing things that government agencies just can't.
Right.
Building trust, fostering dialogue, providing support to individuals and communities affected by extremism.
It's really about the people.
It is.
One thing that stood out to me was this focus on the human element in the reports.
Yeah.
Not just policies and strategies, but people's lives.
Their stories.
The challenges of reintegrating former terrorists, the risk of them reoffending, the complexities of de-radicalization.
All important aspects that are often overlooked.
Yeah.
De-radicalization, reintegration, these are long-term processes.
Not easy.
You can't just release someone from prison and expect everything to be fine.
Right. And according to the Institute for Policy Analysis of Conflict, almost 12% of released terrorist offenders end up reoffending.
That's a sobering statistic.
It is.
It highlights the need for ongoing support, a multifaceted approach, to address the root causes that lead people to extremism in the first place.
So it's not just about stopping the violence.
No.
It's about addressing root causes, building resilience, creating a society that's resistant to extremist ideologies.
Exactly. It's about giving people a sense of belonging, purpose, opportunity.
So they're less susceptible to those narratives.
Exactly. Welcome back. Let's get back into these BNPT reports and really unpack some of their key findings.
Yeah, I'm really interested in what they had to say about online extremism.
Okay, yeah.
Like, it feels like we're just starting to understand how big of a problem it is.
Yeah, and one of the things that really stood out, one of the most alarming findings in the reports, is that the internet and social media are now the second most common way that people in Indonesia are exposed to extremist content.
Right.
Second only to, real-world interactions.
So more people are encountering it online than through, like, radical preachers in their community.
Yeah, that's right.
Wow, that's kind of terrifying.
Yeah. It is concerning. Between 2013 and 2022, nearly half of the court rulings that they analyzed involved offenders who were first exposed to extremist ideology through digital platforms.
Wow.
That's 360 cases out of 721.
That's a lot.
It is.
What platforms are we talking here? Just like the usual suspects, Facebook, Twitter?
It goes way beyond that.
Oh.
We're talking messaging apps, Telegram, WhatsApp,
Right.
even online gaming platforms.
Gaming platforms. I wouldn't know.
Totally. It's a new frontier, but these groups are getting creative.
Wow.
They're using these games to spread propaganda, recruit new members, even conduct, like, virtual training.
What?
Yeah, the reports even mention Hezbollah creating their own games and groups like ISIS modifying existing games like Minecraft to push their extremist narratives.
That's disturbing.
Yeah, it is, especially when you think about how much time young people are spending on these platforms. It's all about reaching these vulnerable individuals wherever they are. It is, and it's not just young people. They're exploiting social isolation, economic hardship, any kind of grievance that could push someone towards extremism.
The reports also mentioned, or I guess highlighted, a pretty big increase in online propaganda.
Yeah, it's overwhelming. The amount of extremist content online is just massive.
Yeah.
And it's not just static posts or videos, you know.
Okay.
These groups are engaging in these sophisticated propaganda campaigns.
Right.
They're tailoring their messages to exploit current events, manipulating algorithms to maximize their reach.
So they're really playing a different game online.
They are.
And it feels like they're always ahead.
Yeah, that's the challenge with online extremism. It's so hard to control.
Right.
Especially when the content, you know, doesn't explicitly violate any laws, but it's still pushing this dangerous ideology.
Right, that gray area we talked about.
Exactly.
So what can be done?
Well, the reports really stress the need for collaboration between governments, tech companies, civil society.
So a united front.
Exactly. To effectively counter online extremism.
So it's about more than just taking down content or censorship.
Right. It's about creating a more resilient online environment.
Right.
Where these extremist narratives are actively challenged.
Okay.
Countered, giving individuals the tools to think critically, to be more media literate.
So they can spot that propaganda.
Yeah, spot it when they see it.
That sounds like a big task.
It is, but the reports highlight some promising initiatives.
Oh, good.
One approach that's gaining traction is the use of counter-narratives.
Right, counter-narratives.
So these organizations are crafting compelling messages, right, to challenge those extremist ideologies.
Offer alternative viewpoints.
Exactly, like the El-Bukhari Institute.
Oh, yeah, I remember reading about them.
Right, they're working with influencers to promote peace and tolerance.
Seems like a good way to reach people.
It is. It's about meeting people where they are.
Yeah.
And it's not just about celebrities. The reports talk about the importance of elevating those credible voices within communities.
Right.
Religious leaders, educators, even former extremists.
People who've been there.
Exactly. People who can speak authentically about rejecting violence and promoting peace.
I feel like if you hear that from someone you respect, it's going to have way more impact than some random government ad.
It's about authenticity.
Authenticity.
And then there's this really interesting development using technology to actually fight back against extremist propaganda.
So like AI algorithms that are hunting down bad guys online?
Well, there are several approaches.
Oh,
Some organizations are developing tools that can detect and flag extremist content, right?
Okay, yeah.
Which makes it easier for those tech companies to take it down.
Right.
Others are using technology to amplify the reach of these positive counter-narratives, making sure that those messages are seen by a wider audience.
Sounds promising.
It is.
Were there any specific examples from Indonesia that you thought were interesting?
Yeah, one that caught my eye was AM Indonesia. They've created this network of young female writers.
Oh, wow.
Who are creating content that directly challenges extremist ideologies.
I love that they're empowering young women to be those voices of peace.
Exactly.
It's so important, especially because these extremist groups are often so male-dominated.
Yeah, absolutely. It shows that the most effective counter-narratives are the ones that speak directly to the audience you're trying to reach.
For sure, makes sense.
And another recurring theme in these reports is the importance of community engagement.
Right, community engagement.
Because those resilient communities are like firewalls against extremist ideologies.
Yeah, I like that.
When those communities are strong, united, actively rejecting those viewpoints,
Yeah.
it's much harder for these terrorist groups to gain a foothold.
To take root.
Exactly.
And the reports did showcase some really impressive community-based initiatives in Indonesia.
Oh yeah, groups like Empatiku and Pusham Surabaya are doing fantastic work.
Yeah.
Building resilience at that grassroots level.
Yeah. So it sounds like a multi-pronged approach.
Yeah.
You combat online propaganda, you empower those communities,
Yeah.
and you give people the tools they need to resist these extremist ideologies.
Exactly. Indonesia's taking this challenge very seriously.
They are.
And these BNPT reports are proof of that commitment.
Yeah.
They provide a roadmap for moving forward,
Yes.
acknowledging those ongoing challenges, but also highlighting those successes in countering terrorism in this digital age.
It's been a really eye-opening deep dive so far.
It has.
We've talked about the evolving tactics of these terrorist groups, the complexities of online extremism, the importance of community engagement.
And we've only scratched the surface.
We have.
There's so much more to explore.
Yeah.
The changing landscape of terrorist financing, the role of international cooperation in tackling this global threat.
Definitely a conversation that needs to continue.
It does, but for now, let's wrap up our analysis of these BNPT reports.
Okay.
And dive into their key recommendations for the future.
We're back for the final part of our deep dive into Indonesian counterterrorism. And these BNPT reports, they're really packed with information.
Yeah, a lot to unpack.
I'm really curious about their recommendations going forward, what they suggest.
Well, one thing that struck me was their emphasis on human security.
Okay, human security.
As a core principle of counterterrorism.
I've heard that term before.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure I fully grasp it in this context.
It's about moving beyond that purely state-centric view of security. Recognizing that real security, it's not just about protecting borders, preventing attacks.
Right.
It's about ensuring the safety, well-being, the dignity of every individual.
So it's about understanding that terrorism thrives in those environments where people are marginalized, their needs aren't met.
Exactly.
They lack opportunity.
It's about addressing those root causes of terrorism.
Right. Poverty, inequality, social exclusion.
All of that. And it's about empowering communities, promoting human rights, fostering inclusive governance.
So that it actually addresses people's grievances.
Exactly.
And the reports talk a lot about community resilience.
They do.
What are some of their recommendations for strengthening that?
They advocate for a multi-sectoral approach, bringing together government agencies, civil society organizations, religious institutions, community leaders.
Got it.
Everyone working together.
Yeah, breaking down silos, that whole of society approach.
Exactly.
It makes sense. You need everyone on board to build a truly resilient society.
Right. You need to create those spaces for open dialogue, promote interfaith understanding, proactively address those local grievances that could be exploited by these groups.
Yeah, get ahead of it.
Exactly.
The reports also highlight the importance of empowering women and youth in these efforts.
Yes, women and young people are disproportionately affected by terrorism.
They are.
But they also bring such a unique perspective.
Right.
They can play a crucial role in building that resilience.
In promoting peace.
Exactly. So it's not just about protecting them from terrorism.
Right.
It's about giving them a seat at the table.
Empowering them.
Empowering them to be those agents of change.
I like that.
The reports recommend supporting women's organizations, promoting women's leadership in these peace-building initiatives,
Makes sense.
and actively engaging young people in those counter-narrative campaigns.
Yeah, recognizing their power, their potential.
Exactly. And harnessing that energy to create more effective solutions.
Now, we touched on de-radicalization and reintegration earlier.
Right.
What did the reports say about those challenges?
Well, they acknowledge that there's no quick fix.
Right.
De-radicalization and reintegration, these are long-term processes.
They are?
They require these individualized approaches.
Okay.
What works for one person might not work for another.
So really understanding the individual circumstances,
Exactly.
their motivations, needs,
And tailoring those interventions accordingly.
providing the support, the resources they need.
Exactly. To disengage from those extremist ideologies and rebuild their lives.
And that includes family and community support.
Right. The reports emphasize that that's crucial.
Having that network, that sense of belonging,
That acceptance.
can make a huge difference.
It can.
But I imagine there's a lot of stigma,
Yeah.
mistrust surrounding former terrorists.
There is. Forgiveness isn't easy.
It's not.
Especially when people have been hurt, traumatized by terrorism.
Of course.
It takes sensitivity, open communication, and a willingness to acknowledge those past harms,
Right.
but also recognizing that potential for change.
Redemption.
Exactly.
One stat from the reports really stuck with me. It said almost 5% of convicted terrorists in Indonesia, they'd already been in prison for other crimes.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
Yeah.
That highlights the need for a more holistic approach to rehabilitation within the prison system.
Right. You can't just punish people and expect that to be the end of it.
No, you have to address those underlying factors.
Right. That contribute to criminal behavior.
Including exposure to extremist ideologies.
So prisons can actually become breeding grounds for radicalization if we're not careful.
They can. The reports recommend implementing programs within prisons to counter those narratives.
Teach critical thinking skills.
Exactly. Provide those opportunities for personal growth and development.
Give them the tools to make better choices.
Turn their lives around.
And that support needs to continue after they're released, right?
Absolutely. The reports highlight the importance of things like vocational training, job placement programs, psychological counseling,
To really help them get back on their feet.
become contributing members of their communities.
These BNPT reports have given us a lot to think about.
They have.
It's clear Indonesia is facing a complex and constantly changing terrorist threat,
Is.
but they're committed to addressing it with this multifaceted strategy that prioritizes both security and human rights.
They are, and these reports offer so much valuable insight, data, practical recommendations
They do.
that can inform policy, strengthen communities, and contribute to a safer, more peaceful Indonesia.
They remind us that counterterrorism isn't just about stopping attacks.
No.
It's about building a society where everyone feels that sense of belonging.
Opportunity.
A society that's resistant to those extremist ideologies.
And that's a goal worth striving for, not just in Indonesia, but everywhere.
It is.
Well, we've reached the end of our deep dive,
We have.
but this is just the start of the conversation.
Right.
We encourage you to keep exploring this topic,
We'll be here for your next deep dive.
ready to unpack whatever you throw at us.
That's right.
Until then, stay curious, stay informed, and stay engaged.